Welcome to another Filmmaker Film Watcher mini episode. I'm filmmaker Richard De Gregorio.
And I'm film watcher Greg Ralph.
So this episode, we're actually going to talk about a film which came out just not long ago called Sinners. Mm-hmm. Now, I know this is a bit of a horror film, and so to bring Greg along to a horror film...
is quite the achievement.
It is an achievement. So when I actually brought it up with you, I thought you were going to say, there's no way I'm seeing that, just like I did with The Substance. I think there was that one as well.
Yeah.
And you said, there's no way. I thought that I was going to...
No.
But you were really enthusiastic, and I thought... Wow.
I was not enthusiastic.
You were enthusiastic.
No. I agreed.
Yeah, you said exclamation mark, yes!
No, it was only on condition that you honour our agreement.
What was the agreement?
I would see this horror film and you will watch a Doctor Who movie with me.
That's okay.
So, Ricardo, why don't you tell us about Sinners?
Let's have a look at this film. Let's break this down. Written and directed by Ryan Coogler, who also directed the films Fruitvale Station, Creed, and the Black Panther films, Sinners is set in 1932 in the Mississippi Delta region and centers itself on twin brothers, Smoke and Stack Moore, both played by Michael B. Jordan, who are World War I veterans with a history of working for Chicago gangsters. They return to their hometown with money stolen from gangsters to start a juke joint for the local black community. As they try and establish their new life, they encounter an unexpected supernatural evil. Now, that's all I'll say regarding the plot for now. Michael B. Jordan is very good here. There were two different characters here that he played, and he played off himself seamlessly. The film also stars Haley Steinfeld as Mary, Miles Catton as Sammy, and the always wonderful Delroy Lindo, who I just loved seeing on screen again.
Again, since what?
I haven't seen him for a long time.
But what have you seen him in?
I'll Get Shorty and another
you should watch the Good Fight. He's been on that.
Yeah, right. Okay, there we
go. Which I loved.
Yeah, he's very good. But Sinners blends horror with other genres, including action and drama as well. It's a real blend there.
And musical.
Musical as well, okay, yeah. Now, music, particularly the blues, plays a significant role in the film's narrative style, emphasizing a significant part of African Americans' cultural identity. Now, I've always loved the blues, and I grew up listening to artists like Robert Johnson. I love the story of Robert Johnson selling his soul to the devil at the crossroads. The blues does have a kind of spirituality to it, and that's why it's used so well here. One of the fantastic sequences in this film is when the blues spirit takes hold of everyone in the juke joint, with the camera moving between people dancing. Some of the people in the juke joint are suddenly dressed in modern clothes, playing modern instruments amongst all the others in the period. It's like the blues spirit takes us through how the blues contributed to the music we hear today. It's a really great sequence. I really loved it. And yes, there is a horror element here, and the trailer makes no secret that vampires exist in this world. There is blood spilt in this film. Now, some may enjoy this just for its horror elements, but there is more going on here. I really think that the film uses this to explore racial violence against African Americans, the oppression and the constant threat of violence they faced. I mean, the film is set in 1932, which is only 67 years after slavery was abolished in 1865. It's very cleverly done here. Now, the film looks beautiful. Cinematographer Autumn Durald Akapour has to be lauded here. It was shot in IMAX and Ultra Panavision 70mm cameras. I mean, you've got to see this on the big screen. It looks really beautiful.
Although we should say we did not see it in IMAX as such.
We didn't see it in IMAX, but we saw it on the big screen. Now, I do think the story between the two brothers and what they were doing could have been more compelling in the first half of the film, but I think the second half makes up for that. Now, I'm really wanting to get into the discussion with Greg here because I know he was squirming in his seat during this. So, Greg, tell me, what did you think of Sinners?
Well, I spent the entire film feeling sorry for you.
Why?
Well, here's this film about the Blues, and they didn't mention your football team once. Look, you know I didn't want to see it. I don't like horror films because I don't like gore.
Yeah.
This is not a particularly gory film. Not really.
Well, the second half gets a bit bloody there.
Well, but it doesn't feel real, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
In fact, for me, the worst thing about seeing this horror film were the horror trailers beforehand.
Yeah, that's true.
That's probably where I was squirming most.
It was quite a few of
But
those.
in terms of the film we're actually talking about,
Yes.
I had a sense of dread developing all through the first half of the film. And in some ways, that was the scariest part for me because I didn't know what was going to happen and how gory it would get. Because I just don't like gore. I'm a wuss. I don't. But I have said, I think once before on the podcast, that I prefer vampires to zombies because vampires are rational.
Yes.
Zombies are by definition completely irrational, just, brains, whereas vampires often want something. Might be just feeding, but there's more going on in the story here. I thought it was a good and intelligent tale of suspense that built dread as it went.
Yeah, it did.
But I thought it fell apart, particularly at the climax. So it took a long time for the story to really get going.
It did.
The first vampire doesn't appear till about an hour into the film. It's a 2.25 hour film, basically. So I kept thinking, what's going to happen? And it was right to build up that world, but I just thought there was too much going on. A lot of extraneous detail. I don't think, quite frankly, we need to know about the mob and, where the booze came from, and because it never really affected the story, for example.
No, it didn't.
And when they hit, obviously we're being careful of what we say and don't say, but there's a big climax scene, towards the end of the film, and which I think just went completely over the top. It was like the film had been building this sense of suspense and dread and, following the rules of vampiredom from other films. They can't come in until they're invited in to this juke joint that most of the film is set in. But then there's this big, I think we can say it's a big climatic battle.
Yes.
Well, I just sort of thought, okay, this is now much less sophisticated than I was expecting. And then there's this whole sequence in the daylight, which I thought was completely unnecessary, did nothing really for the film. There was a kind of a nice sort of supernatural element to that part of it.
Yeah,
but I thought the whole story could go. And I want to be really careful what I say next because I am a privileged white male in a different time on the other side of the world from where the story is set.
Yeah.
Having said that, I felt like it painted a really good world of the black people back in the era of the Jim Crow laws in the south of the USA that made it real and gave you a sense of some of the things they were dealing with at that stage. But the race relations of the film, they felt a bit simplistic to me. So I thought the most interesting thing was that the initial vampires were white and almost all the other characters were black.
That's right.
And when the white vampires turn up to where the main part of the story happens at the juke joint, the first person they turn is a black character who passes for white. And then there was, other things going in the story. I sort of thought, I think this could have been a bit more subtle and a bit more deep. I liked the relationship between the twin brothers, Michael B. Jordan playing both of those. I thought
very good. He's very good.
He was very good, and the technology was good because there were scenes where little things were happening between them physically, where they're passing a cigarette back and forth to each other.
That's right.
I was looking for the drawing. I could not see it.
You can't.
There were a couple of scenes where I thought one of them looked a little bit like it had been pasted in. I could kind of see that, but not at these moments when they were moving backwards and forwards between each other. It was beautifully done.
Yeah, there was great moments in there. You can't. I couldn't tell. It was just put together so well.
And the other thing that annoyed me about it was that, particularly in the early part of the film, I couldn't understand what characters were saying. There's a lot of mumbling going on.
Yeah.
And particularly at fault, I don't think you've mentioned him yet, Miles Caton, who played Sammy Preacher Boy.
Yeah, I mentioned him.
Okay, the guitarist and singer, who's got a wonderful voice, by the way.
Oh, he's very good.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
But a lot of the time early on, I couldn't work out what he was saying. Yeah. And all I wanted to do was to reach for my DVD control and turn the subtitles on. Because I felt like I was missing important story elements that I just wasn't picking up on.
Yeah.
It's a good classic vampire tale. It follows the standard tropes about, garlic and the wooden stakes and, as I say, having to be invited in.
Well, you know what it reminded me of? I don't think it's a film you've seen, But not the early part of the film, but as
From
it
Dusk
gets
Till
into
Dawn?
yeah, absolutely.
There's a
From
lot of
Dusk Till
commentary
Dawn.
out there saying that, yeah.
So,
and no, I haven't seen it.
Now, From Dusk Till Dawn, it's a very comical approach as well. I mean, some of this was quite a comical approach as well. I mean, all the garlic and the chewing the garlic and all the rest. It just played with those familiar vampire tropes, you know.
But it had the added element, one that I haven't seen before, where when you become a vampire, the lead vampire at least shares your memories, can speak language that you speak, like Chinese, for example. That was new. But I have to say, and I'm saying this slightly tongue-in-cheek, but, you know, it's a good puff piece for vampirism. It shows it as being a really good lifestyle choice, you know, universal brotherhood and sisterhood.
Yeah, it's true.
Once you become a vampire, you can suddenly play a musical instrument like a banjo. You sing really beautifully. And a group of vampires can basically put on a production of Riverdance. I mean, you know, that was really impressive. And I think I might have to reconsider my lifestyle choices.
But you know what it was doing, though? It was the first time that I really saw vampires as evil entities, like spiritually evil.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a common trope.
But it was a bit different. I found in this. It was just felt a little bit different.
Well, I do want to pick up on one thing you said. I agree. I thought the highlight of the film was when they first started playing the blues music at the juke joint.
Brilliant.
And what happened in that scene. But I don't think you quite picked up on what it was about. Because it wasn't just musicians from the future, it was musicians from the past.
Oh, there was all of them, yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
and so it was picking up on something we were told at the very start of the film, which is there are some people who are such talented musical storytellers that they can conjure the spirits of musicians of the past and the future,
right?
As
okay.
well as as well as attract evil, you know, in the form of these vampires. And the way they did that, both visually and in terms of the music, was for me absolutely the high point of the film.
It really is the high point. It's the way Ryan directs that scene. It was different, and that's what I loved about it.
I thought. So I wasn't wrapped in Miles Caton as Sammy, but
really
because he mumbled.
Oh, that was okay.
Yeah, I found him really hard to understand. Good, yeah. But I say, boy, he can sing. But I think all the other performances were really top notch.
Everybody's good.
Including we haven't mentioned Jack O'Connell, who plays the original vampire Remick.
Yeah, he
was very good.
Yeah,
and he does a mean Riverdance
he
routine as well. And he's got a lovely singing voice as well.
Yeah, it's true.
I guess the other two things I would say about the film is, first of all, make sure you stay for a post-credit sequence.
Yes, do that.
We were one of three groups in this cinema. It was, it was relatively late at night, and the film's been on for a little while. But the two other groups left once the title started, and there's a whole sequence, sort of mid-end credits, that gives the story a lot more meaning, and you've got to stay for that. And the second thing I would say is there are a couple of story elements that just really bothered me. So there's a sequence at the very start and end of the film in a church, and I really didn't know what that was supposed to be about.
I don't know where. I thought that was going to go somewhere,
so did I, probably
or something was going to happen, and I just didn't. And it's because it starts there.
I know.
And then when we return there, I think, what's going to happen here?
What's the realization of this?
And it just goes nowhere.
It ignores it.
It ignores it, and I mean, in fact, we cut to the future. So I just don't.
In the credits,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I agree with you there.
The parts that just didn't come together.
Yeah.
And the other part was, the first time we meet the original vampire, Remick, he's being pursued by a group of Choctaw Indians, and they never come back. It was like this, again, this unrealised story element where it felt like they'd be important, they'd give some sort of insight down the track, or they'd ride in and rescue people or something, but they're just completely eliminated from the story. And I felt like this was a really interesting idea. There were some parts that were really well realised, like that first blues number, and the integration of the music, and even a bit of genre hopping. Yeah. But I felt like in the end it didn't quite come together for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on most of that. I think there was more good than bad.
So out of 10?
I'm giving it a 7.
I'm wavering between 6.5 and 7, but I think I'm going to settle on 6.5. It could have been a much better film. It was promising. Thank God it wasn't as disgustingly violent as I feared it might be.
Yeah.
But it was a good tale that just needed more sort of thought and massage, I think.
Yeah.
And a bringing together of the story more.